She advised them to refrain from entering. She ensured that they would never attempt to repeat the scenario, as they failed to heed. Tasha Williams had earned every possession she possessed through diligent effort. At 42 years of age, she was pleased with her residence, a stunning two-story residence in Chandler, Arizona, that featured a backyard that served as her sanctuary. Her pride and joy was a crystal-clear, meticulously maintained pool, which was situated at the center of the fence, surrounded by palm trees. She was not inclined to boast, but she had every right to be proud. She purchased the residence independently, without the assistance of any favors or bypasses, but rather through years of diligent saving, hard work, and strategic decision-making. The majority of the residents in her neighborhood were families, with a mixture of new and older householders. Some individuals were amiable, while others maintained their privacy. Tasha was indifferent to the outcome. She was not seeking to become the community's beloved, rather she desired to reside in tranquility. However, that tranquility, it was brief. She dismissed it upon its initial occurrence. On a Saturday afternoon, she returned home from conducting errands and observed damp footprints that extended from the backyard gate to the sidewalk. Initially, she suspected that it might be a utility worker or a landscaper. However, she then observed it, a damp towel that had been recklessly tossed over her fence, dripping. She examined the pool. The water level was reduced. Her leisure chair was occupied by a half-empty beverage can, and her pool float was relocated. Someone had been in her backyard. While endeavoring to grant individuals the benefit of the doubt, she inhaled deeply. It is possible that it was an error. It is possible that a child leaped the fence and became frightened upon being apprehended. However, she received only casual glances from the residents when she inquired about the situation. "It is likely one of the children," remarked a woman with a chuckle. "You are aware of their behavior." Another neighbor, a man in his 50s, scarcely glanced up from his vehicle as he stated, "They are merely enjoying themselves." "Miss Williams, you possess an attractive swimming pool," individuals observe. She was troubled by his manner of articulating the matter. However, she refrained from pressing the matter. She simply tightened the latch on her gate, in the hopes that it would not occur again. But it did. She was in her living room when she heard sloshing 1 week later. Initially, she considered the possibility that she had left the pool filter running. However, this was then followed by hilarity. She proceeded to the rear door and peered out. A teenage male was swimming nonchalantly in her pool, as if he owned the space. A girl, who was likely his sibling, perched at the edge of the pool, dipping her feet in. The door was thrust open by Tasha. "Could you please excuse me?" The children's eyes were open as they jolted up. The youngster emerged from the water in a manner reminiscent of a fish that had been captured. He sputtered, I thought, we did not anticipate that you would object." "You neglected to inquire," Tasha abruptly reacted. "What is your identity?" Before they fled the gate, the girl faintly mentioned that she lived 2 houses away. Tasha stood there, her heart beating, holding a towel that was soaking. She desired to relinquish it. However, the rationalizations followed. She confronted the parents of the children the following day, anticipating an apology, rather, an argument. The mother scoffed, "Oh, come on. They are merely children. It is exceedingly humid. What is the significance of this?" Tasha was astonished as she gazed at her. She spoke slowly. "The significance of this is that it is my property, my residence, my swimming facility. Additionally, I cannot recall issuing invitations." The father, with his arms crossed, murmured, "You are being overly dramatic." Dramatic. That was the term that individuals enjoyed using when they were not the ones being degraded. The remarks that Tasha truly desired to express were retracted. In lieu of this, she implemented surveillance cameras. It is possible that this would convey a message. However, this was not the case. The challenge was merely initiating the process. The security cameras were operational for approximately 2 weeks. Initially, the neighbors distanced themselves. No more uninvited swimmers, no more damp towels, and no more traces. Tasha entertained the possibility that she had effectively communicated her message. However, on a sweltering Saturday afternoon, she approached her driveway and observed an unusual occurrence. Her side gate, which she consistently secured, was slightly ajar. She became tense. As she walked around the back, a negative sensation crawled up her spine, and there it was. It was crowded in her yard. This is not limited to children. Adults who have reached adulthood. The lounge chairs have been occupied. The ground is littered with beer bottles. Someone had even arranged a folding table with refreshments. Additionally, what about her swimming pool, in its entirety? A pair of women were conversing as if it were their own backyard, wading waist deep. As he drank a beverage, a man reclined against the pool ledge and grinned. Tasha momentarily believed that she had lost her cognitive faculties. Was this a genuine occurrence? She surveyed the throng as she advanced. And that was the moment she met Sandra, one of her neighbors, who lived 3 houses away. Sandra, who had never previously interacted with Tasha, waved as though this were a casual gathering. "Hello, young lady," she cried out. "I trust that you do not object. We decided to cool off today, because it was so hot." Tasha's mandible contracted. "Mind, oh," she was concerned. "Every single one of you, get out, now." Her voice was both piercing and unwavering. There were individuals who experienced a state of freeze. Others exchanged glances, as if she were exaggerating her reaction. Sandra snorted. "Please refrain from acting in such a manner. It is merely a swimming pool. You were not even present at your residence." Tasha stepped forward, her wrath simmering just below the surface. "It is not merely a pool. It is my personal pool, my residence. This is my yard. You do not reside in this location. No payment is required for this. Therefore depart. The entirety of you." Someone murmured. "Geez, what is her issue?" That concluded the matter. Tasha rushed to the pool equipment crate, retrieved the remote, and deactivated the pool filter. The power cord to the speakers was then pulled. Silence. "I will be contacting the authorities," she declared. That prompted them to take action. Drinks were stolen, wrapped towels. In a matter of minutes, her yard was completely cleared. However, Sandra had the audacity to smirk as she exited. "You are not required to be so tense," she murmured. No one was causing any harm. Tasha desired to shriek. Instead she stood motionless, observing as they dispersed as if nothing had transpired. She shut the gate behind them, locked it, and stood there, hands on her hips, incensed. However, she was certain of one thing: this was not the end. They exhibited no regard for her, and if respect was not sufficient to deter them, something else would. Talking, reasoning, surveillance and passwords were all methods that Tasha had employed. However, none of them were successful. Therefore it was now time to unleash our creativity. She looked at the security footage from earlier that day, while sitting at her kitchen table. The audacity of these individuals, the manner in which they conducted themselves, as if her property was theirs to exploit at their leisure. She was no longer confined to anger. She had completed her task. And if they continued to abuse her pool, as if it were the neighborhood water park, she was on the brink of ensuring that their next visit would end. Initially she visited the supply store. She acquired 2 heavy-duty locks, one of which was intended for the side gate, one for the pool apparatus storage. The previous versions were robust, but these are impervious to damage. She then proceeded to obtain a unique chemical remedy for her pool online. Chlorine is not present, a more potent substance. It was not hazardous, rather it was an innocuous yet highly effective approach employed by public pools to identify rule breakers. A small substance known as pool dye, a chemical that is non-toxic and causes the water to develop a vibrant green color when urinated in. Indeed, if any of those individuals attempted to utilize her pool once more, they would emerge in a state resembling that of a radioactive alien. However, that was only the beginning. Tasha desired insurance that would compel them to reconsider their actions before entering her yard again. Therefore she visited a nearby sign store and had a personalized pool sign created. The following morning, she drilled it directly into her fence, where it was visible to all. Warning: the pool has been chemically treated to prevent unauthorized use. Temporary skin discoloration, severe irritation, or a rash may result from exposure. Was the tone somewhat extreme? Certainly. Was any of it actually accurate? No. However, they were unaware of this. And in order to facilitate the sale, she positioned an empty hazardous chemical container in close proximity to the pump, which she acquired from an acquaintance who was employed in maintenance. She was now required to wait. Additionally, it transpired expeditiously. She sat by her window, savoring iced tea, and observed the scene the following sweltering afternoon. The majority of the day was uneventful until she observed a couple of adolescents passing by her fence. They halted and examined the sign. One of them murmured a phrase before pointing to the chemical container. They immediately reversed direction and proceeded to depart. Tasha's lips curled upward. Sandra, the same entitled neighbor from the previous pool party, was walking her dog later that evening when she noticed the sign. She squinted at it before removing her phone and commencing to type. A few minutes later, Tasha accessed Facebook and discovered the post from her neighborhood group. FYI, it appears that Tasha has incorporated an unusual chemical into her pool. It is claimed that it results in skin concerns and infections. I am uncertain about the safety of that. I am simply informing you. The comments began to pour in. OMG, what if it seeps into the ground? That does not appear to be lawful. Why is it that she is so concerned? It is merely water. Tasha's laughter was audible. They were enraged. It was not due to her deception. Not because they were apprehended. However, they came to the realization that their complimentary voyage was over, and they were more than welcome to challenge her. Tasha experienced tranquility for the first time in months. There will be no more haphazard linens. There will be no more strangers relaxing in her yard. There will be no more entitlement attitudes. Her strategy was successful, or at least she believed it did. However, the doorbell rang. She heard a piercing, impatient pounding on her front door on Thursday evening. She placed her beverage on the table and examined the peephole. Sandra crossed arms, demonstrating signs of irritation. Tasha let out a breath. We are now ready to proceed. She maintained her composure as she opened the door. Sandra did not squander her time. We must engage in a conversation. Tasha raised her eyebrow.
Should we?
Sandra expressed her dissatisfaction. I am unaware of the nature of your issue. However, there are allegations that you have incorporated hazardous chemicals into your pool. Tasha blinking, she then grinned. She replied with ease. I did, to prevent the entry of uninvited guests. Sandra's mandible tightened. You are unable to do that. What happens if a child comes into contact with the water? Tasha folded her arms. A child who unlawfully entered my yard. Sandra declined. That is beside the point. Tasha responded. That is precisely the point. I advised individuals to refrain from entering. They did not pay attention. Subsequently, I implemented protective measures. Sandra snorted. You are absurd. You do not even have children. It is resting there, squandering its potential. Tasha inclined her head. So my pool is available for public use because I do not have children. Sandra's eyeballs rolled back. Oh please, do not behave in a manner that is indicative of. Tasha interrupted her. No Sandra, just come on. You and the remainder of these individuals possess an extraordinary amount of courage. My utility bill is not paid by you. My pool is not cleaned by you. However, do you anticipate that you will be able to assist yourself? Sandra's complexion became flushed. Perhaps individuals would develop a favorable opinion of you if you were less confrontational. Tasha's laughter was profound and sincere. That is your issue, Sandra. You believe that being liked entails allowing others to dominate you. Sandra moved her head in exasperation after opening her mouth and closing it. Do you know what? Ignore it. Turning on her heel, she changed direction. Delight in the role of the unkind neighbor. She was summoned by Tasha. Enjoy the convenience of utilizing your own hose this summer. Sandra abruptly departed. The door was closed by Tasha, who smiled to herself. They were enraged, but they had finally comprehended the message. In order to confirm her decision, she went further. The following morning, she completed the project by installing a motion-activated sprinkler system along the fence. A frigid, gentle wake-up call would be administered to any individual who attempted to re-enter. However, what is the most noteworthy aspect? She was not required to employ it, because no one attempted to repeat the process. The era of freeloading had concluded. Tasha had finally regained her tranquility after months of frustration. The pool is once again hers. Quietness in the courtyard. The entitlement is no longer present, and the most delightful aspect. She was never required to contact the authorities, because that was never the objective. She did not intend to incite a commotion or cultivate animosity.
She merely desired that her possessions be honored. However, the reality is that certain individuals do not adhere to boundaries unless they are compelled to do so. Tasha had endeavored to be amiable. She had issued warnings. She had also inquired in a courteous manner. Additionally, they had neglected her at every opportunity. However, as soon as she reversed the script, they withdrew. Because ultimately, individuals will extract as much as they are permitted to. It is irrelevant whether it pertains to your time, space or vitality, or even your own swimming pool. Failure to establish boundaries may result in an individual's disregard for your personal space. Therefore, was Tasha's behavior petty? Potentially. However, was she incorrect? Not even a little. How about you? Have you ever been compelled to defend yourself when individuals attempted to exploit you? Alternatively, how would you have resolved this scenario? Please leave a comment below and we can discuss the matter. Additionally, if you found this narrative to be enjoyable, please consider liking, subscribing, and activating the notification chime to receive additional content. I appreciate your attention. Additionally, it is important to bear in mind that respect is earned, not bestowed.